Hello and welcome to An Evening with Nirvana, a podcast where I'm talking to a series of guests from the Doom community about level design, map creation, and other facets of game development. On the show, this episode is MtPain27, who you will likely know as the man behind Dean of Doom, a YouTube series that sees his dulcet tones reviewing WADs with an attention to detail and sincerity that you aren't likely to find elsewhere in the community. Personally watched a huge number of his reviews, and I can't recommend them enough. Without further ado, let's get talking to the Dean of Doom himself, MtPain. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Nirvana. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, happy to have you on. Very excited. And interesting for me because a lot of my guests, like I know a little bit of their background. I might have heard them talking about it somewhere. Maybe they stream. But with you, you're a bit newer to the community, I think, and so I'm sort of in the dark with a lot of these even more mundane questions.
Happy to provide answers.
Well, we'll start with the very boring one, but I think will be interesting for me, at least. What was your first experience with Doom?
Yeah, I don't find that question boring at all, especially because I think my experience with Doom is in some ways very similar to others in that I had a period of exposure, a period of quiet where I didn't touch it, and a period where I came back to it. I probably first saw Doom. Well, keep in mind I was born in '95, so Doom 1 came out 2 years before I was born.
Mm-hmm.
My dad bought a copy of Final Doom. He did not buy Doom 2. He did not buy Ultimate Doom. As far as he knew, the only Doom that there was Final Doom. So I grew up watching him play TNT Evolution when I was like 4 through 8. I watched him just struggle his way through those first 30 maps. No way did he find the secret maps. So most of my experience with Doom when I was a kid was just watching it. My parents were fairly conservative when it came to the kind of games they let us play. So violent video games were off the table until we were about 13. I did get to play Doom for the first time when I was 13. I guess that would be 2008. And I played through TNT. Made a huge impression on me. It is easily the iwad that I am most rooted in nostalgia for. And I only made it through a couple of plutonium maps before I kind of just quit. It was too tough.
Yeah.
So I guess my first exposure to Doom, the way I got into the game, was through Final Doom. I still have the CD, actually. And then I came back to it. I remember leading up to the time that I could play Doom. I was so excited to play the game that I made like an Excel version of Doom, like a Microsoft Excel version with all the weapons and randomly generating numbers. Like it was super rudimentary and like turn-based. But I came up with my own names for the monsters because I didn't actually I didn't read the manual. There was a manual that obviously told you what all the monsters were. I didn't know what they were called. So for the first 13 years of my dooming life, I was calling archviles like skeletons or whatever. I was calling revenants and archviles are both got that name.
Just lump them in.
Yeah, they're just skeletons.
Yeah.
Cacodemons were beholders because of Dungeons and Dragons. Hell Knights and Barons were minotaurs. I don't even know what I called them, so I just called them those brown things. And then I had no name for the Cyber Demon because I was so scared of him. He's the big scary thing. And I was obviously petrified of Archviles. They were definitely the monster that they were an instant plasma gun or BFG for me. So I came back to Doom. I think I had one of those nostalgia kicks you get when you're exiting college. And you just kind of want to reconnect with your youth one last time before you go off into the big adult world. And one of the things I wanted to do was play Doom again on my laptop. Now, the CD that had Final Doom on it it just couldn't communicate with my laptop. So I bought Final Doom on Steam and played through DOSBox. And it was significantly worse because I played through Doom 95 when I was on my dad's old computer. And that was actually, ironically, gave you a better experience. And his newer computer had a higher quality MIDI device. So I heard the kind of standard Windows MIDI format rather than the OPL, which is what I had to deal with on Steam Doom, which is terrible. From there, I think in 2017 was the first time I bought and played Doom 2. And then in 2019, I just played basically Plutonia, TNT, and Doom 2 on loop. Not all the time, but like whenever I was bored or needed something to do, I'd play those games. And then bought Ultimate Doom at last, back in, I think, 2019. And at that point, I was starting to slowly get into community stuff by reading about it. I don't know if you have further questions about that, but I guess suffice to say that my exposure to the iWads was like ass backwards. I took the reverse route, and basically got in like one toe at a time, I guess you could say.
Well, I guess I was curious because I'd seen in the video where you reviewed TNT that it was your original iWad, and I wondered like how you felt that having played that first sort of influenced your thoughts on Doom.
Absolutely. So for the first part, I would say that the thing that is like most gets under my skin most and like sinks into my DNA as a person the most about Doom is the music. As far as like sense memories I have of classic Doom, those like first 8 maps of TNT, all of those tracks are just like, I can just think of them and hear them. And that's the sort of thing that would get me hyped to play the game again. Now, obviously, like that's one of many amazing things about Doom. But that's the thing that kind of drew me back in. TNT's music, obviously being not Doom 2 music, I think also made an impact on me. Maybe even kind of just coincidentally that it was basically community members who made those tracks, gave me an affinity for kind of like for custom midis. I'm not sure. As far as level design goes, TNT is known as the more atmospheric, darker, kind of more cinematic of the two WADs in Final Doom. Doesn't really emphasize combat. There's also a lot of weird stuff in TNT, a lot of weird secrets, a lot of weird progression things. The way I described it in a recent post on Doom World was that I was forged in the fiery crucible of Final Doom in terms of like iWad exposure, because there's just so much. You just have to kind of rid yourself of logic playing some of those maps moving forward. I'm thinking of map 18, Mill, where you have to like shoot the lion head to raise a platform to get to a last switch. It's like, come on, even Doom 2 doesn't have anything that crazy.
That's the mastermind map, right? The one where he's in a big box. Is that Mill?
I don't think so. There's a cyber demon at the end of that one.
Oh, okay, wait. All right. Yeah, I'm mixing up my TNT maps.
It's easy to do for somebody who didn't grow up with it. Like I've got this encyclopedic knowledge of TNT and like a much weaker working knowledge. Like I couldn't even name you all the maps from E1, for example. Those the titles don't really stick out to me. Basically that's just maybe it's maybe I've been called a hipster before in terms of my Doom preferences, so perhaps TNT is just kind of I wouldn't say like twisted me or anything like that, but it's given me a different outlook. It's given me an unusual perspective. Yeah. Now I also come from with the perspective of I'm an English major. I'm a writer. I loved movies. I still love movies, but I was like an ardent movie buff all through college and the couple years thereafter. Yeah. So I look at Doom as an art form, as many of us do. An art form and an entertainment and all those things, but I think I may like TNT more because it's not so much just an arcade game as an experience, you know.
Well, I mean, I'm a TNT apologist, actually. I'm a big fan of it. Yeah, me and Rubik's both like it a lot. I don't know if it's, I can't remember if it's his favorite iWad, but I don't know if it's my favorite iWad. Like I definitely prefer the gameplay of Plutonia, but I do think TNT does atmosphere a lot better and benefits a lot from its MIDI, which is sure. Definitely really strong. It also, I like the obtuseness of it, and like as somebody who likes games like Demon Souls and things like that, there's something about odd progression and TNT does this weird thing where it has like a lot of pointless space, like it has these gigantic rooms that open up to nothing. There's nothing in them, and then other little areas you go to that are there and they don't offer anything either. There's no Like, going into a
Lots
space
of-
doesn't necessarily mean you're progressing, you're just going there because it exists and you can, which is kind of a nice thing sometimes, I think.
Yeah, it's just there to explore. There's lots of stuff like that. I'm thinking of Crater. There's a lot of real estate that isn't being used very well. The Drake O'Brien maps, ironically,
Crater's probably the worst.
especially Administration Center, that gigantic box in the beginning. You just have to make the rounds, super shotgunning, chain gunners, and imps, and then you can start the map. But otherwise, you're just going to get annoyed by the chain gunners the whole time.
This is 20,
but
right?
I do
Is Administration Center 20? God, I really...
21.
Okay, God.
Central Processing is 20.
Okay, yeah.
That's the one I really like. That one in MtPain.
Yeah, I think everyone hates 20, right? I'm pretty sure 20 is the one
I've heard a lot of people
hates, but
well, not. I thought Administration Center was a little more hated. I have heard, actually, you know what? I've heard more outspoken hatred for 20, but also more outspoken love for 20 than 21.
Yeah, 21. I guess you could just argue that 20 is just polarizing, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure when I was younger I used to dislike it, but as I got older I learned to appreciate the MIDI and the atmosphere it creates and the weird surrealness of the shift from this semi-realistic office space into this completely nonsensical kind of abstract area.
Yeah, I have to say that if it didn't have Horizon playing in the background, it would probably be a much weaker map. However, I will stick up for... There's a thing Drake O'Brien does that it took me a long time to realize or like put it in words, but his maps all start with you in a place where it's like small and cloistered, and then you emerge into a giant other space that you didn't know you were in the whole time, and it's like a wow moment. Administration Center has the biggest real estate area in all the iwads. It's a gigantic map. There's that giant watery thing with the hanging garden in 20, and then MtPain obviously is this huge outdoor area with the title structure. But that's just a really cool, like, you don't see a whole lot of that. Usually, I mean, a lot of mappers like to show you the grand spectacle first, and then you kind of dive into it, and then the thing. But I really like the drama of the unveiling at the end. Even in the map that I don't like, which is 21, that map is very tedious and very strange. A lot of secret enemies that I think even in the episode I decided not to go for 100% kills. That was a long time ago. I would have definitely done that 100% kills now. But anyway.
Sometimes you gotta decide whether it's worth it or not. And maybe not in that case.
At that time, it wasn't.
I think I actually talked to someone else for the podcast and we talked about TNT. I can't remember who it was who I was talking to about this because I have recorded like 50 of these now in the background. But
no way! Wow, that's awesome. That's a lot to look forward to.
It's not actually 50. That was an exaggeration. But I think there's at this stage, which people will hear this at probably like a very random time. Like this could get released at whatever time. But at the moment, I have like 7 or 8 episodes recorded, ready to upload.
Right, and at the time that this is being recorded, you have only, I think, 7 or 8 up, so you're way ahead. That's great.
Exactly, yeah. But I was talking to them about TNT, and what they pointed out, and I wish I could remember who it was now, because I think it's like a great thing to note about TNT is that it has much better skyboxes than Plutonia. Like the space skies really do a huge amount for TNT in terms of atmosphere and setting, I think.
I totally agree, especially the middle episode with the nebula or the galaxy. I always loved that in map 13. It's got a really great view of the open sky. Some of those maps are a little bit like Mill is like almost entirely indoors, and a couple others, I think 19, the one with the crate maze is mostly indoors, so it's a little bit wasted. But I remember map 13 and map 20 especially really highlight that gorgeous skybox. It's an excellent point.
Mm-hmm. And also all the weird little textures that they added. The Doc Greer and the red version of that, and then there's strange like animated radio textures, and there's hideous vine fences that they use in 20.
Yeah,
they look so out of place.
They're not good, and I've seen a couple other. There's actually a map that's very much inspired by map 20 of TNT in Nova 2. It's Obake map. Covered it in the episode. And it uses those the green vine things, and they're very MS Paint, and they don't fit with anything else. Even amongst the other TNT textures, they're not right.
Yeah, exactly. But I was curious, what about MtPain as a map specifically made you want to name yourself after it, and why you think it's TNT's signature map, as you put it in the video?
So there's a funny story behind the moniker MtPain27. Way back in 2019, right after I downloaded ZDoom for the first time, I was actually playing Doom. Not in the most primitive fashion possible in the modern day, DOSBox. I decided that I wanted to do like playthroughs for whoever was going to watch them. I was very inspired by Decino at the time. Dean of Doom was not really a thing in my mind. It was like the phrase existed in my mind, but not the actual like show, and I had no plans to do anything about that. So I created a new YouTube channel, and I was like, well, I can't just call it, my name, or just like I got to come up with a Doom alias somehow. Well, what's my favorite map? At this point, I haven't played many custom maps. Why not MtPain? That's like iconic. It's like my favorite map and my favorite WAD. So MtPain, and I got to put a number. Oh, this is so stupid. MtPain27. That's so it's so silly. But I went with it because I figured nobody would ever see it. I literally showed those videos to my brother. Me beating like Doom 2 with 100% kills was my goal, to go through all of Doom 2 with no saves and 100% kills. I got through like 9 maps and then just kind of got bored of the idea because nobody's gonna watch them, and what's the point anyway? And later on, it also hosted those 2 Doom 2016 videos that I also just showed my brother, and became the home of. I was like, well, I've got a name, I've got a channel that I can use to upload Dean of Doom. I guess I'll just be MtPain27. And it was very awkward at first because I didn't own the name at all. Like I didn't feel like it was me at all, but it kind of stuck. It was a total accident.
It's lucky your favorite map wasn't Administration Center, because that would not have been a great name.
Administration Center 21 doesn't quite roll off the tongue as well.
I like it though. I think it's good. It's a little.
Well, to be fair, I do think, to answer the second part of your question about why MtPain is the signature map of TNT, is it kind of embodies TNT's entire striving to create, an atmospheric cinematic experience. There really aren't any moments in TNT more dramatic than, you're in this like castle keep with a sewer, and it's very cloistered and dark and restrained, and then all hell breaks loose, and oh my god, there's lost souls just pouring out of the sky, out of this mountain, and there's enemies everywhere, and it's there's toxic sludge everywhere. That fight was one of the hardest in TNT for me on keyboard, especially. But I was always really psyched because the music was great, and I don't know, like it had the strongest impact on me as a. And also, I hated MtPain for a long time. I should say I started off hating that map because it was just painful and difficult in the beginning, especially.
Yeah.
But because of the hit scanners and the lack of health. But yeah, no, it kind of grew on me, and it also kind of forged my identity of initially really disliking maps that give me a hard time, then growing to love them. That's like my signature at this point.
Yeah, I feel like what I do remember about that map is that it was annoying when I was a kid and I played through TNT. Because I think, like, I played it when I was, like, I played Doom when I was very, very young, like 6 or something, and then came back to it when I was like 13 to sort of properly play it and like go through all the iwads with saves and stuff, and really all I remember is that final outside area before the exit and how much of a pain in the ass it was.
It is a pain, especially when you have almost no health left in some cases when you're done clearing that area out, and then you take the elevator down and you're in that cavern, and there's an archvile and a bunch of like a perched chain gunner and a Mancubus and a Revenant. Just it's very annoying and very tricky.
Yeah, I remember the Lost Souls being of particular annoyance.
I don't even think you can kill them all. Some of them get stuck in MtPain forever.
Wow, that's that sounds like some sort of Greek myth.
Yeah, Sisyphean.
Lost souls trapped in MtPain forever. So Was most of your early gaming experience FPS games, or did you play a wide variety of stuff?
I would say most of them weren't FPS games, actually. I mostly played. My dad had a Sega Genesis that he took to college with him, or like out, or was like his console of choice, like right after he left college. But I had my first like 7 years of life. I played like Sonic the Hedgehog and Road Rash and a hockey game I played that I really liked. I really loved sports games. I played a lot of Madden on PlayStation 2, which was the second console we ever had. I liked kind of like the banner classic games of the PS2 system, like Jack and Daxter, Jak 2. Had a little bit of missing some big names. Played a lot of like hack and slash games like Baldur's Gate, Dark Alliance, Champions of Norath. What else? Like I said, lots of sports games. Play a lot of football games. So I was like really, really madly into football until I went to college. Didn't play football. Just liked keeping statistics and stuff, which is consistent with my love of ranking things now.
Yeah, it's true.
What else? Yeah, I guess my first FPS was probably Doom. I don't think I played. I didn't. My dad had Quake, but didn't play it a lot. And it kind of faded away. It was of no interest to me. Doom was the more colorful game, the more loud, exciting, scary game that I wanted to play. Doom was always very scary to me as a kid. Made me very tense to play. It was not relaxing like it is today.
Yeah, I think I
I
was
think
the
that kind of
same.
makes my relationship. Yeah, yeah. I think that kind of just makes my relationship with it stronger now that I used to know it as like a. It's like a thing I've tamed in my as I got older. Um.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, I would say the last game that I was really obsessed with, the game that I got the most obsessed with besides Doom in my life was probably a tie between Skyrim and The Last of Us.
right.
And those two games made a lasting impact on me. I love those games. But Doom it comes in infinite flavors and varieties, and there's more to be done with it. That's why I still consider it my favorite game.
It is interesting though that you know that you're a writer and that storytelling is important to you, and then you play these big story-based games like The Last of Us
Mm.
and Skyrim, but like I mean Doom notoriously not very story heavy.
Mhm.
Couple of blocks of text here and there in the original to indicate what's going on. I think there was like a little preface to Final Doom for TNT and Plutonia in the manual or whatever that sort of indicated what the story was meant to be, which I always loved
Yeah,
as a kid. I remember reading those a bunch of times because I liked them a lot.
they're pretty cool. I like them too.
But it's interesting that you ended up sort of taking this angle with a game that is functionally, and not just in the iWads, but for PWads too, for the most part, story is not really the focus. Like, very gameplay heavy game, I would say.
And that's something I think about a lot. Doom was always my kind of turn off my brain and enjoy kind of game in my early years in playing it. I liked the intensity and I liked the fast pace. I didn't play it for the story at all. It was kind of like a break from my other endeavors. I guess that might be why I leapt at an opportunity to kind of turn my writerly eye toward it, because I was really kind of obsessed with Doom when I started Dean of Doom. I still am, but it's in a more healthy way, I think, because I don't turn to it to like ignore other life things. I do it because it's like it's a constructive activity that I'm spreading the joy of Doom. I hope, or I delude myself into thinking.
I think you.
But thank you. You make a good point though, and it is pretty odd. It's funny when Dean of Doom started, I thought of it as like my, not my main thing that I do, but like my fourth tier thing. It's like a a very side project that I'm just getting lucky enough to get recognition for. Nowadays, I definitely consider it front and center of my like daily activities, more or less outside of work. But I still do one day hope that I'm known for another thing, and then like I also made Dean of Doom. That would be really cool. Now, I am so grateful to be in this position, and basically, like if nothing else happens in my life, period, I can at least say that I was a spokesman for the best of the Doom community, which is just an amazing group of people to represent in any capacity. So just want to say that before I get too egotistical.
People will be worried you're looking to move on.
No,
soon.
Not yet. Not yet.
So you did touch briefly on this, but your earliest videos on your YouTube channel, they're actually Doom 2016 instead of the OG Doom. So could you talk a little bit about your experience with that game and what made you want to start uploading videos to YouTube in the first place?
Yeah, of course. So I played Doom 2016 probably 3 years after it came out. Or probably the end of 2019. I remember seeing the trailer when I was in college and thinking, wow, that's actually like way cooler than Doom 3. That looks like it's super badass and actually kind of honors the original blood and guts and fire and brimstone of the original games. That's something I'd like to play one day. And then I just kind of set that on the back burner. And when I got a console and the ability and some time on my hands, I went crazy it was my COVID activity playing Doom 2016. And I did play Doom Eternal eventually, but I didn't get on the boat immediately. And I do prefer Doom 2016 because I'm weird and contrarian like that, I guess.
Yeah, hot take.
I mean, I don't think it's necessarily better. I just like it more. I think the ones I uploaded to YouTube were again to kind of just showcase. I put like funny titles and descriptions there, like slightly goofy descriptions, because that's what my brother would do when he wanted to show me clips on his little YouTube channel. And when I say little, I mean it's basically just a repository for us to show each other stuff. But then I figured when I was going to do Dean of Doom, I had those really crappy quality playthrough videos. I got rid of those. But I left up the Doom 2016 ones because it showcased that I at least knew sort of what I was doing video games wise. And I thought it would be interesting to see like if people liked them, or I never expected them to catch on. They were more or less just Easter eggs to keep around for me to privately chuckle at when people watch them.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting that it sounds like from what you said, you didn't really enjoy Doom 3. But to me, you're a TNT enjoyer, and you are interested in story, and you love Doom. So I feel like there are a lot of things about Doom 3 that are reminiscent to me of TNT the most out of any iwad, I would say. And
that's true.
I would have thought that Doom 3 might have been up your alley, because personally I did quite enjoy that game.
Well, I like the production design. It's just not a very fun game to play. And actually, to be totally honest with you, I only played Doom 3 last year for the first time.
Oh, okay.
So it's not like I had the idea that I had played Doom 3 and didn't like it. It was more like what I saw it looked like a horror game. It didn't look like Doom to me was a scary action game. It wasn't a horror game. Whereas Doom 3 was mostly based on like jump scares and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree that my initial reaction was certainly the same of like, this isn't Doom. Like, I never thought about Doom as a horror game myself, and I never thought of sort of gore and the horror aspects as being like a major component of the game, particularly. But for some reason, I played it when it came out pretty much, maybe like a year or so after, or something like that, and for some reason I ended up really enjoying it. I think it helped. I don't think you can play that game today, because the graphics, for some reason, even though they looked amazing when it came out, they've aged horribly. Like, everything looks like clay in that game these days when you look at it.
It's very claymation, isn't it?
Yeah, it's odd. But when it came out, though, it looked incredible. Like, nothing looked as good as that game. But
and the lighting is still very impressive for 2004.
Yeah, it's true. That's pretty much all you heard about when it was coming out. Like, John Carmack talking about bump maps for like 20 hours or something. But so Doom 2016 wasn't actually your pathway back to classic Doom, because I thought that might have been the case when I saw those videos.
Yeah, no, I played Doom 2016 to kind of take a break from classic Doom. I got back into classic Doom in college when I downloaded the iWads on Steam. And I played them so many times. So there's actually, if I can go on a little tangent, the I would say the thing that brought me back, that brought me into custom Doom maps, and therefore like kind of permanently grabbed me on custom Doom or classic Doom, was I just one very fateful Google search, like best Doom maps is what I typed because I just wanted to know what people thought of NT, like just rank those.
Mm-hmm.
Found I found the list. It was around 2018 or 2019. I found the Doom World's 100 most memorable maps list.
Right.
I was like, "What's this?"
Fortuitous.
I went through, yeah, and I went through every single one of those. I was like, "I don't know any of these. What is this? What is TNT Revolution? What is Alien Vendetta? You know, what are these things?" So I had to read the top 10 list because I mean, I may not have known or cared what the other ones were, but I at least could look at the top 10. And that kind of fused itself in my brain. Misery Halek, specifically, really grabbed me. You know, an Egyptian Doom map, and the description of it was very, very mysterious. It was like, I want to see that map. I want to. What is this? And I want to know how to play it. So I found a YouTube video of just somebody doing a UV Max speedrun of Misery Halek, and the music caught me immediately. Like I didn't know it, but I got that weird. You get a feeling sometimes, and you know you're gonna know something better very soon, or eventually. Like you're gonna become entangled with this thing, and I got that feeling with Misery Halek. And just eventually, I started like I was always a Doom Wiki person. Like I was on the Doom Wiki a lot when I was a kid, just because like I found this kind of stuff interesting, monster accounts and stuff. But I finally did a little digging into like, you know, wow, the Doom Wiki houses all this information on custom maps. I'm really curious about, you know, how to play those and what they are. And that's when I started watching Decino. When I watched Decino, he introduced me to Hell Revealed 2, and Ev Eternity. And it was kind of all came together when I was like, okay, I want to play Ev Eternity because it looks really cool. How do I do that? I also want to play Sigil, which, you know, Romero had come out with that around the same time, and I was a big Civi 11 fan. I watched his video on that. Basically, it was Decino, Civi, and my just building curiosity about custom maps that led me to download ZDoom and start learning how to download those PWADs from the wiki and from wherever. And I was off to the races from there, basically.
Yeah, I was curious because it seemed like I saw a Doom World post where you talked about like early PWADs you'd played, and it was like kind of a mixed bag with Eve Eternity and Alien Vendetta. Like they're not really from the same eras, so I was curious why you sort of chose those WADs to download, and I guess it was mostly down to Decino.
Well, Decino got me into Ev Eternity, and Sigil, I just didn't know. Like, I knew Romero was responsible for Sigil, and at that point, I'd played a bunch of Ultimate Doom. Actually, for a while, it was like a ritual to just go through E1, to burn through it, because it was like the easiest Doom I had access to, and it's still pretty much the easiest Doom around. It was just satisfying to feel more powerful than it. So to hear that he was making a new episode was pretty cool, because I could connect with that for the first time in a while. New Doom. When I played it, I thought, wow, that's great. Give me more. And I think at that point, you know, I started regularly consulting the memorable maps list, and I started like kind of coming up with a list of like WADs I'd like to play based on just the stuff I heard about it. One of the other earlier ones that I wanted to play was TNT Revolution, because at that point I thought, well, this is the sequel to TNT, the only sequel that exists and will ever exist, not knowing about the whole devolution, convolution controversy.
Yeah.
I just thought Revolution was it, so I said I'm going to play that, and I'll try out the Hell Revealeds because Decino played those, and just and I had to play Alien Vendetta. I had to play Alien Vendetta because of that search and because of Misery Halek, and that one was what really hooked me. Alien Vendetta, kind of walking you through different styles of mapping, got really, really difficult at the end. My campaign through Alien Vendetta was halted permanently at map 27. I don't even know how I slugged my way through Demonic Hordes and Dark Dome at that point, but I just couldn't hack Stench of Evil. But I was determined not to be defeated forever, and the more I played, the better I got, and I just sort of, it snowballed from there, because you hear about, if you play TNT Revolution, you kind of see it adjacent to, I don't know, Valiant, WADs like that. Like if you played this, you might also like. I'm not even sure where I found this stuff at this point, but yeah, I actually, I'd have it in front of me. there's a very, very old version of the spreadsheet. Yeah, the first couple on my list were like Sigil, Hell Revealed 2, Alien Vendetta, Revolution, and then I played Back to Saturn X because of just, Ancient Aliens, Plutonian 2. And then I wanted to go through a 90s phase. It was like, so there's, I'm like, 90s maps have got to be easier than the stuff I've been just getting destroyed by Plutonia 2 and all this stuff. So I played Requiem, and Requiem was actually pretty hard in places and not like pure fun at all. This is actually fascinating. I haven't looked at this in forever.
So you made a pretty conscious decision early to play like WADs from
like a variety of stuff.
Yeah.
But I had no idea what I was doing because I put off some of these. Like I'm surprised that I'm happening upon them only now, even today. I ignored going down and Speed of Doom and stuff like that in favor of Chorus's speedy shit. I played pretty early, and 2002 a Doom Odyssey. I had no guide. I was doing this all by myself. So
yeah, and so when did sort of Dean of Doom come about? Like, when was that sort of conceptualized and why?
Yeah. So it kind of comes from my habit of keeping spreadsheets on everything. I wanted to track what maps I was playing. I made at one point I made a list, like I want to know what the best maps in TNT Evolution are. And I gave them grades. I don't know why I gave them grades and not like numbers, but I gave them grades. And there was a spark of an idea. And it was the same kind of feeling I got when I saw Alien Vendetta, and I thought I'm gonna see you later in my life. I had that thought with the grades and with the phrase Dean of Doom. So I was thinking school and Doom and grades, and it came together in that phrase.
Yeah.
And it just stuck in my head for a while. I didn't do anything about it. Then I eventually said to my brother, I've got an idea for like a YouTube or like a show. I don't know what to call it. It'd be like a video series, but I don't know where to put it. I guess YouTube. I'm thinking it would be about, giving Doom maps grades, go through all the maps and just talk about them and give them grades. And I want to call it Dean of Doom, but that sounds really haughty. It sounds really arrogant because I would be like calling myself the Dean of Doom, or it would look like that when I wouldn't want it to look like that. That's why I always say I am MtPain27. This is Dean of Doom, as in the show is called that. But he said, no, I like it. It's alliteration. It sounds good. So I kept it.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, go.
Oh, I was just going to say that, alliterative titles are always a step in the right direction.
Yeah. Sure. And then another one of my COVID activities was I needed to do, I was in a kind of a creative hole. I wasn't really doing a whole lot that was in the way of writing or music making. Those are two of my outlets historically. And I thought, at very least, I can write about Doom because I'm playing all this Doom. I can make a pilot for this show or TNT because I know it really well and I won't have any trouble playing it. So the first issue that I had to overcome was recording the footage because I had my crappy old laptop that's in the graduation video for season 1. I couldn't figure out how to make OBS work on it, and it didn't have a capture software. It just an automatic built-in screen capture software. So my brother lent me his old laptop that had a really dinky. You press a button, it records, and a variable frame rate, and it's very messy. But I used that. I recorded on that my brother's laptop all the footage. I would port it over to a external hard drive and work on it on my other laptop. I'd edit it on my other laptop. So yeah, I made the first 5 episodes from July 2019 to September, and released all 5 of them, the first 5, on I think September 3rd or 4th. I was on Decino's Discord at the time, and I very, very rarely posted there, mostly just lurking for the first couple of months. But people were talking about Doom, so I thought that was really cool. And I basically said, hey guys, anybody's interested, I made this show. It just reviews once level by level. First episode's TNT. There's a bunch of others on there if you want to go binge them. And then faithfully, either within the day or within a couple of days, Decino saw it and he posted he shared it on his community tab. and a lot of people flocked in. I got about 1,000 subscribers in like 2 or 3 days. That is
Wow.
the beginning.
The power of Decino.
Indeed, Decino, he has blessed some of us.
Yeah. Well, I will be talking to him next week, actually, for the podcast.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's really cool.
So yeah, that will be an interesting one.
I will watch the crap out of that.
So in terms of like making content for YouTube, was Dean of Doom the first time you created structured edited videos, or had you worked with editing before, or like had a little bit of experience with it?
Dean of Doom was a first in that I had never ever tried to edit game footage of anything. That was a unique challenge. However, I have a background in movie editing. I have been editing stuff since I was 12 or 13 years old, making movies since then. Like an integral part of my upbringing and part of my personhood. I think is I really like editing and being. I am a filmmaking type, although I've lost my my eye for like shots and like shot composition. If I were to ever make another movie, I would just ask someone else to be my DP. But putting like shots together in editing format, that's like my thing. So I was no stranger to that. However, I was a stranger to talking in a microphone, kind of putting clips back to back to back, and then like keeping the viewer interested in gameplay footage for 20 minutes or more. That was brand new to me. And it was, you can kind of see how over the course of the show, my editing didn't start incompetent, but it was not optimized at all. Like joining two clips of Doom Guy doing stuff is more of an art form than it seems. Mostly because like it's you won't really notice if you're not looking at the screen like how crappy the edits are in the first episode, but like I try to make cuts kind of seamless nowadays. Like I try to cut on a beat or cut on like if the super shotgun's blasting, like cut to another frame where the super shotgun is in that same, you know, animation frame, and it's like it seems more invisible. And I nowadays like I have to resist being a perfectionist about every single cut being like right on some kind of, or being. I'll talk about this more a little bit later, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that in the beginning it was definitely a challenge to like make it interesting to look at for me, and also fishing through all that gameplay footage for like specific shit that I was talking about.
Yeah.
Like, oh, the yellow key in this room. It's like, well, okay, now I gotta find. I learned very quickly to like rely on cues. That HUD is a lifesaver. If I want to find like when Doom Guy found the key, I scroll through the footage until it appears in his inventory, and when it appears, that's where he found it.
Yeah.
Same with weapons, and I often the big secret to Dean of Doom editing is that when I need something interesting to be happening on the screen, I look at the audio track, and wherever it's like fattest and loudest,
Yeah.
I just go there and use that because something interesting is happening if there's like explosions and screaming. So, and you can't hear any of that in the video most of the time because I mean I mostly just talk over it. But yeah, that's the secret.
I like it. I mean, that's all. Yeah, no, that is interesting to hear. I was sort of curious. Maybe we'll talk about it a bit later with the sort of process of it, but about that whole thing of like when to be record. Like, yeah, I'm assuming you just play through and you record all your footage and then you just have it there for the edit, as opposed to going and trying to record specific things. But I would imagine there might be moments where you maybe didn't capture something you wanted during your playthrough and then have to go back and like run around a little bit as Doom Guy to like capture some footage that then has to look semi-natural or whatever for the video.
Yeah, that's as a filmmaker, it's like the thing you want to avoid most is reshoots. That's like the worst thing. So you got to get what you need to get the day of, and if you don't get it, then like you kind of you make great sacrifices not to have to go back and set everything up the way it was. So most of the time, I have not had to re-record anything, and my process used to be to do all the recording, like as in just play through the whole level. Which is, I mean, I figured that was the simplest route rather than like trying to get the shots that I wanted for each thing. That would just be an insane, like the list of like bullet points you need to hit for each map it just wouldn't be worth it. So I might as well record the whole thing.
Yeah.
So my process used to be write the whole thing first. No, well for TNT I wrote the whole thing first because I knew the maps already. So it's a very unusual situation where I like didn't even need to play the maps to write about them. Almost unique. Then I would play the WAD and then edit everything. And that process has evolved and kind of refined itself into midway through. I hit a bunch of roadblocks with writing because I would try to play everything first and then do all the writing second after I'd played through everything. So I've just finished map 30 and I'm about to start writing map 1. And it's like, okay, now I got to remember what that was like. So I turn on the footage and I'm skipping through that. And it's like watching footage is not the same as playing. You get different impressions.
Yeah.
So the end of season 1 and big chunks of the beginning of season 2 are me writing not very freshly because my impressions of those maps aren't very fresh because I spent actually Community Chest 2, for example. I recorded that during Valiant and then took a big break after Valiant, like a week, and then sat down and tried to write Community Chest 2. So those maps have been sitting there just untouched, and the footage has been sitting there untouched for like 2 weeks. And only the mucus flow got the attention that it really deserved. And I think it created a lot of like kind of scorn for the process in me that I had to kind of go back and like relearn the map again through the footage secondhand. It just got very dry. So what I do now is I absolutely do not move on to the next map until I've finished the map I'm working on. So I literally will play a map and then write about it immediately to keep it as fresh as possible. So every map that is from I think the French episode of last season on has been I play the map and then I write the review about it. That's worked really well because there's more impressions are more instantaneous and I remember more stuff so I can get more specific.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that definitely seems to make more sense. And how do you go about sort of choosing a WAD that you think will be suitable for a Dina Doom video? Does it have to like match certain criteria, or is it just like, well, I enjoyed this, so I want to play through it and I want to make a video on it?
Well, actually, it's different now than it was then, because season 1 was about covering the canon, basically. Looking back, I used to play a lot more WADs that I didn't really want to. I would go into episodes with some trepidation, like especially with stuff that was hard, like Alien Vendetta. I really liked Alien Vendetta, but I wasn't very good back then. So it was one of those things where I think I spent like 20 hours playing Alien Vendetta, just like 20 hours of footage recorded, when it could have been like 12 or 13. I was getting lost and getting frustrated, and so that was an example of like I had to cover Alien Vendetta, but that was an example of that's a bad example. Let me try a different one. Something like Scythe. I played Scythe and I kind of liked it, but when I got to Scythe in the season, it was like I ought to do an important WAD. I ought to do one of the mainstays. People will be excited to see Scythe. It wasn't that I wanted to do it at all.
Yeah.
Same with Hell Revealed, although that was like a what do you call it? A poll. And Community Chest 2 is another one that was like, well, I could get Community Chest 2 in before the end of the season. The only reason I'm doing that is for mucus flow anyway. So yeah, there even stuff like Going Down. Like I really wanted to cover Going Down, but I felt pressured to kind of cover a big WAD.
Yeah.
And that is absolutely the case with also Hell Revealed 2. To a lesser extent Scythe 2, because I also wanted to play Scythe 2. And the biggest one, the most like I'm only doing this because I have to, is Memento Mori.
Right.
That one, I had no desire. That one was a year in the making. Just getting delinquent footage and arranging playing it co-op with other people. Like it was going to be delinquent playing for a while, and then it was going to be just me, and then it was like, well, I could also, ask people to be. It was a mess, and the multiplayer part was the most fun part of it. The least fun part was actually going through those maps and finding interesting things to say. So,
yeah, it's a very old one. I've never actually played it myself. I've watched people playing it, but
and that is perfectly sufficient.
Yeah, I feel like it's tough to go back and kind of feel like you have to have the same emotions about something that old that other people do. It's like, well, I just can't put myself in that headspace. It's like watching, I don't know, like a very old film.
Yeah.
That, like, maybe it's the film that started a whole bunch of tropes in film, and, you know, it's like, oh, well, this was the first of a genre, or, like, I don't know if you've ever seen Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, for instance. It's like a very famous
I have
film.
seen that movie. Yep.
Yeah, and you watch that film and it's like, yes, I can appreciate that this started a lot of things in cinema. It's a seminal film, it's important, but I didn't particularly enjoy it, I'll be honest, when I watched it.
Well, because it's hard to enjoy. It's a silent film, and it's very slow, and it's expressionist. It has historical value, but Memento Mori is very similar. It's like the Citizen Kane of Doom. It was put together very competently.
Holds up a little better than Memento Mori, probably, but
it sure does. It sure does. Maybe maybe the Battleship Potemkin of Doom. But anyway, nowadays I pretty much only play what I want to. There are some that I'm going to cover that I want to cover them. But they're also WADs that people would like to see that are popular picks. But at this point, I can actually happily put off doing WADs because it could extend the lifespan of the series. And I could say, well, I could save that for a potential next season, and have something for that season, and also just do the WADs that I want to cover now, which is, I think, worked out great because I haven't been not excited to do an episode probably since before the extended break I took over last Christmas.
So the Eternal Doom episode coming soon, I'm assuming.
Yeah, actually, Eternal Doom is like this is not even spoiler territory because I think this is pretty well understood, but it's worlds better than Memento Mori. It's a very, very different experience because it's so unusual and so blatantly experimental. At this point, I like stuff that tries to be different as much as I like just genuinely high quality stuff. There's absolutely a place for to think of I really don't want this to sound offensive. There's like high quality stuff that isn't that distinctive, and it's like map by map. Because like I just played, for example, Literalism community project. That's just it's like whiplash from map to map. Every single map is totally different, and that was just fascinating to play through. Even though some of the maps were garbage,
you know who you are.
That made it more fun. They might. But like that to me is like more ripe Dean of Doom material than something like Back to Saturn X2, for example. Like those are inarguably high quality maps, all of them. Every single one of them is like a little gemstone. But that homogeneity works against it when I have to sit down and write an episode that is, a lot of those same types of maps back to back to back. As opposed to like if I get a grab bag of weird stuff, that's actually more fun to write about, even though that WAD is probably not as good. So nowadays I'm a little spoiled in that I can choose episodes that are fun for me to write, and put more emphasis on that than WADs that I ought to cover, become a legitimate Doom reviewer. Because I feel like I've already kind of established that now.
Well, it's sort of the AAA versus indie thing almost.
Yeah.
Where, and like ideally maybe you get an Elden Ring, like a Bloodborne, like where it's like,
yeah,
AAA
or Valiant
team behind it. Yeah, or a Valiant or an Ancient Aliens or whatever. Where it's sort of got that indie flavor of experimentalism and fun and not adhering to strict structural elements in design and stuff necessarily.
Yeah.
It needs to surprise you, I think, which definitely some WADs don't try to do quite as much.
I'll tell you what, the WAD, the episode that I just recorded tonight, which is episode 3 of season 3. I know that this could come out at any time, so I'm just labeling it. That actually kind of falls under that category of really high quality WAD. that is also kind of vibrantly different map per map, and not perfect. Doesn't have a perfect sheen over it, but it's got the AAA quality and the boldness that you don't get to see a whole lot. So it's actually an episode to look forward to.
I'm interested now.
Very fun to write.
I'm gonna pressure you after the show to tell me exactly what it is.
I can definitely give you hints after the show. I don't think I will. I don't think I'll straight up tell you.
That's fair.
But we'll see.
Okay. So when you record your videos, you use like a very specific set of criteria for grading.
Yes.
Why did you decide on grading things by quality and difficulty as opposed to, say, like breaking the WAD down into a smaller subset of categories, like texturing and things like this?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I wholeheartedly accept the criticism that quality is really broad, really like vague, almost to the point of it doesn't matter. But I've also said that, more or less. When I break it down by quality and difficulty, I wanted to give the maps grades for difficulty because that's just another metric upon which to like easily place it in a ranking with other maps. Hence, ranking things is fun.
Mm-hmm.
And quality was like a catch-all word. Like I didn't really like calling it quality. It felt kind of icky to me, especially in the beginning when I was not equipped to judge a map's quality. All I was judging it against was like stuff I had played, which was a pretty small number of maps. So it's basically like what I thought of it, like where I would put it in my WAD library, and that's it. Nowadays, I have a much better grasp on where like a certain water map fits into the broader spectrum. I can put a little emphasis on historical importance. I can also more qualitatively evaluate things like texturing and lighting and mood compared to a broader, like other maps have tried X or Y or Z before. Whereas, when I started the show, I was thinking that MtPain was one of the actually most dramatic maps ever.
Yeah.
I did not have the perspective of, well, there's a lot of maps that radically improved on this whole concept of a map can be a gameplay experience and also a sort of storytelling experience, sort of like movie experience, sort of thing. Yeah, I think quality. I put the 5 subsections of I say it with every video, but I'm forgetting it now. Fun, memorable, visually distinctive, creative, and a fair challenge. Fair challenge sort of is sort of like difficulty, but it's like how hard is the map trying to be versus how hard is it actually. Those subsections of quality are, I think, I pay more attention to those, and they all kind of get nebulously flattened into one letter. But I put so many caveats in the beginning because I wanted to try to make it so that not so much that the audience didn't care about the grades, but so that the audience at least knows that that I'm aware of how kind of subjective they are. Well, not kind of, how very, very much subjective they are.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Well, I'll ask this question first, but so in terms of having these subset categories, do you have, since you say you like making spreadsheets so much,
yeah,
do you have strict subset categories that you do in the background? Like, do you, when you're trying to grade a map for quality, are you like, okay, let's have a look at textures, lighting, like interesting encounters, whatever? Do you have a set of separate criteria that people don't see, or is this just more, as you're playing, it's more of like a feel thing?
I would say it's more of a gut feel. That runs counter to the spreadsheet persona that I embody. But I also, like, if I need to break a tie, I actually had to break a very, very difficult tie today for valedictorian. And it's like, what do it does kind of come down to fun. Fun really is which map do I look forward to playing more? That's what I'll put higher than another map. However, if I've got 2 really fun maps and one is kind of like, it's fun in spite of the way it looks, and the other one is just gorgeous, I'll put that one higher. I do, but it's all in my head. Like, I don't actually put numbers to these things. There's not a real exact science behind it. It's kind of like when I need to break a tie, I look at the specifics. But you'd be surprised how often I play a map and go, yeah, this is feeling like a B. or oh, this is slipping into D. Oh God, wow, D minus. That sort of thing. But nowadays, I actually think the grades have kind of smoothed out. I give fewer A's and a lot fewer F's because I find that I enjoy the game a lot more now. Even the shabbier maps are kind of like fun in their own way. So I tend to give them like not failing grades, but like D's and even low C's.
Mm-hmm.
And I also find myself getting a little harder to like really wow. So I don't give out a lot of A pluses very much. It's got to be really amazing and like basically in the Dean of Doom Hall of Fame, like one of the top 98th percentile type maps to get an A plus. Whereas an A is outstanding in every way. It maxes out all my criteria.
Maybe
people recently. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, you go ahead.
I was going to say that just on Resurgence video, the premiere of season 3, some people were saying, it sounded like MtPain was resisting giving out an A plus, and it's like, well, yeah, because, well, first of all, I didn't really feel compelled to give out any, but I do resist giving out A pluses because they've got to be really special. And honestly, it might take a while for an A to turn into an A plus, like because I got to grow with it a little bit. And I gave out so many A pluses in season 1 because a lot of these maps, like I really lived with for a while. Like I have Eternity, I played like 5 or 6 times before I showed up on the show. TNT, I didn't give out any A pluses in TNT, but I gave out a lot of A's that probably would not, it wouldn't hold up today. But I gave them such high grades because they're part of my Doom DNA.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, though, I think that overall the Doom that I'm playing today, I'm getting more fun per minute out of it than I ever have. Just it's never been more fun for me to play Doom than it has been today.
Maybe this is how like people at IGN and stuff end up giving out 7s for everything because they've just people always criticize them for that, but perhaps it's just a natural evolution of giving out these number grades where it's like, well, I did play this really horrible game this other time, and this game is nowhere near as bad as that. So maybe they're like, it's just a natural thing of playing thousands of games.
That's true. I mean, if you want my mini IGN tangent, I don't really absorb a lot of gaming news, but I feel like there is a pervasive inflation when it comes to giving out ratings of things.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
For example, like when I give out a C for a Doom map, it's not like it's not 50th. It's not like 50th percentile. It's actually what I'm trying to say is that a C is not like a bad grade. Like if I got a C in school, I'd be panicking because they only give out B's and A's in like high school nowadays because a C or D means your kid is stupid or whatever. Because there's a whole concept of you can't like my kid needs to get these grades because he's not a C student, he's not a D student. When really the whole point of grades was just to it's just to rank people. I mean, if you give everybody A's and B's, they all just get clustered and harder to distinguish. Grades become valueless. So with things like IGN, there's definitely like I think a fear of displeasing people, and also like these games probably are like 7s out of 10 in terms of effort, but like they're not actually scaling them. Like if you zoomed in on all those 7s and 8s and 10s and whatever, and took all the 7s and made them 1s, made all the 10s and made them 4s, you'd start to see the differences between the good games and the games or the bad games. If the lowest game gets a 6, just chop off the bottom 5 points because you never use them. This is what I
think is that when you're looking, not that I would ever look at a game review online and take it seriously in any way, but
right.
Hypothetically, if you were to, my advice would be to treat it as if the scale goes from 5 to 10. So if you get a 7, that's in the middle, so it's actually a 5. That's usually, I think, you can probably get away with that.
It's like gymnastics where they don't really give out like 1s, they give out like between 8 and a 9.6 or something. So like if you get an 8, it's like, oh, that's terrible,
Yeah, I mean, people are going to just work out what the bottom end is anyway, and then it's like, well, this game only got like a 6.5, so it must suck. But like, if that was a real scale, it would be a decent amount above average, but...
There's also an element, there's also selection bias, 100% selection bias in my channel, because I could play stuff like shovelware. I could go through D-Zone and just hand out F after F after F, and just like drag the average down.
Excuse me?
But
You're gonna sit here and shit talk D Zone? That was my childhood right there. You had TNT, I had D Zone.
You had D Zone. Well, I am sorry I haven't even played D Zone. I can't even talk. I'm just spitballing.
It's terrible. A lot of the maps don't even have exits. So.
Oh jeez, that's rough.
That
yeah, that would be. I mean, I gave an F in the Delinquents WAD at a map without an exit, so I gave that an F. But what am I trying to say? Talking about grading scales.
Bias, yeah.
So I'm to be honest, I'm playing a lot of really good Doom. Like I'm playing Doom that I think people should play mostly. So that's going to be really good stuff. Actually, like I had a point midway through season 1 where I started trying to be a hard ass about giving out A's, and that started with Alien Vendetta, or not Alien Vendetta, with Ancient Aliens. And Ancient Aliens got the brunt of my like, does this really deserve an A phase, which was just a really annoying incarnation of Dean of Doom, where I gave a lot of like B pluses and B minus. Like I gave early Ancient Alien maps B minuses. Like why? They're perfectly like they're perfect for what they are. Ancient Aliens map 2 might be one of the best map 2s there is, but like it may not be an A plus, but it's like it wasn't a B minus. There's just so many grades I cringe at there because I was trying to make A's worth more, even though, I mean, at that point I was just trying not to be like an A whore, so to speak. But like all I needed to do was wait, until I had more WADs that I covered and give more perspective. So at this point, I don't really care what grades I give out. Like if I give out an A plus, I give out an A plus because it really matters. If I give out an F, it ain't good. Me anyway. I've given out some controversial Fs. But
well,
anyway.
It's interesting to hear that you sort of go to great pains regarding, pun intended, by the way, sort of regarding the number,
I love
like the
puns.
number and letter sort of grades that you're giving out. I think for me, because of my experience with, I also did film and stuff, and I was also an English major, funnily enough. But
oh, nice.
I did film, and looking at film reviews and looking at video game reviews and stuff, I've reached a point where I generally just ignore the score entirely. So for me, when I watch your videos, I think it's just, for me, I think of it more as like it's a structural element to the format of the show. Like it's there to give your episodes some structure to them, but I don't necessarily think of the grades as like the core element that I'm looking for when I watch them.
Well, I am so glad to hear that you see it that way, because that's exactly how I see it.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly how I would like people to watch it, because grades are fun. Like I like that the discussion they generate. I like when people think I get things wrong, and I appreciate when people think I get things right. But at the same time, the fun for me in the writing is the wordplay and the descriptions and finding a really like a map you can sink your teeth into writing wise. And I love seeing people enjoy my vicarious enjoyment in Dean of Doom episodes. So that's why I like writing about WADs I love much more than WADs I dislike.
Yeah, well, I talked at the very beginning, sort of in the introduction, about the sincerity that I think you have for this. And I think talking to you now, it kind of shines through even more. And I think it's something that's often lacking in a lot of creative pursuits. I mean, there's a ton of sincerity in the Doom community, but there are people who refuse to be sincere about the thing they love. Like they can't bring themselves to, like, there's a vulnerability to sincerity that people are kind of a bit afraid of, I think. So it's always refreshing to me to see somebody who's sort of very sincerely enjoying something and putting themselves out there in that respect. I think that's sort of what I enjoy about the show in a lot of ways. And even though I vehemently disagree with you sometimes, and I'll be like, come on, man, like.
I think that's great, honestly. And you know what? That's why I try not to pander. Like, it's actually very important to me that I listen pretty much only to me and like what I think, because it gives the audience something to play off of. If I just tried to say what I thought everybody wanted me to say all the time, not only would I not please a lot of people, I would be less interesting. Like, I don't even try to be polarizing. I don't try to say controversial stuff. I try to say exactly what I think, because that is, I mean, I am just one man, and I have a rather particular set of preferences at this point. So, if anything, you're more consistent I am, and the more I honor that inner thing that resonates one way or another, the more consistent a perspective I give to the viewer.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. So sort of back to like the general grading criteria and stuff.
Yeah.
Are there things that you find for you personally that sort of instantly tank a map's grade or inversely instantly boost it?
Yeah. I thought about this question actually. I know what instantly boosts it. I have a hard time. Okay, I guess like I know when I will start looking kind of down my nose at a map immediately is when it starts to look just unkempt is the word I settled on. Um kind of like, I mean, not cuz like it would be an insult to say like 90s ish, but those maps from the 90s that kind of have big swaths of texture and not a lot of changes in height. They're boxy, kind of like rooms with monsters.
Yeah.
When I start seeing that, it's like pretty obvious that like my brain turns off. But those are fun to write about though. So I kind of enjoy tearing into them a tiny bit. I try not to do it as viciously as I used to. I try to kind of joke around with it and kind of like affably like, good try, that sort of thing, rather than what I did to poor Gene Bird. I don't want to do that again. I regret that a little bit. But it's trying to think about. I try to filter out my frustration with the map the first time I play it because I get easily frustrated by stuff in regular life, and I'm better and better. I'm getting better and better at this, but I try not to let like this map annoyed me and it killed me a lot bring a grade down. I don't like doing that. Sometimes it actually, is annoying and is unfair and ought to be, censured for that. But most of the time, I'm just crying foul because I'm bad at the game, etc. So I guess let me. I have to tiptoe around this a little tiny bit because I don't like. This is not like an automatic fail, but when the mapper seems like they're really full of himself. This is a really subtle subject, but like
interesting.
This can be like a good mapper. There's definitely like decisions that you see in maps after playing enough of them that it's like, oh, look at how clever I think I am.
You're talking about Fracture Worlds, aren't you?
No, I really am not actually, because most of those decisions are. I mean, from what I've played so far, it's ball busting. But I wanted to mention the fight in map 3 with the floor that turns from like water and blood. You have to hit a switch, and it's like you kind of. It's really cool. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that, and I thought that was just really tremendous. Like, there's a difference between that was clever and the mapper going, "Oh, I think I'm clever."
Well, joke's on you because I did think I was really clever when I made that. So.
Well, and in some cases it can be both.
Big failing grade for the map.
No, not at all. Not at all. Because like if it is clever, then it's deserved. But there is a certain like basically that's what will make a competent map a tank. Is when
that's interesting. Though actually, I really wonder what you mean by this because
let me try to give you two examples. The first example is when you get weapons in a weird order for no reason. Like you start with the plasma gun, and then you get the chain gun, and then you don't get any shotguns. Like I'm actually talking sort of about Disturbia.
Are you talking about perhaps like getting a weapon that's deliberately incorrect for the encounter that you have to deal with? Following
more like here's you get a plasma gun to start, and I'm going to give you 80 cells. And you got to use them exactly the right way to get, or not even exactly the right way. Like it's not even optimized. It's just I'm going to start you off with the plasma gun because I think that's interesting. And then you pick up, and they have the chain gunners and shotgunners on like ledges, so you can't get their guns. And then it's like, well, next I'm going to give you a rocket launcher. It's not a ton of maps that I can think of that do this, but you can kind of tell when it's like, okay, I'm doing something different. I'm doing something off the beaten path. The other a real bugaboo for me is if there's a tasteful way to use damaging floors, and then there's a blatantly like, haha, most of the map is intraversable, and you better save those 2 rad suits I gave you. Like, I think that's just really low. Especially when it's like not even in a combat situation. It's just to get from point A to point B, or to backtrack, or to explore my map. You got to take damage going through lava. Like, fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
I really really annoys me. And I've seen that done, at various intervals. Actually, yeah, I will mention one specific example because I've already talked about it on the show. Map 14 from Community Chest. Regrettably, I really don't want to talk badly about Use 3D because I think he actually is just a mapper who has. This is not an arrogance thing, by the way. I'm getting away from the mapper has ego. This is
Mm-hmm.
more like just decisions that rankle me. One of them is just damaging floor everywhere, and that map is just hard to get around without stepping on something that hurts you.
Mm-hmm. I think I
Platforming is another
did
thing.
personally shit talk Use 3D quite a lot when I streamed Community Chest because
Because 13 and 14, they're actually very gorgeous levels for what they are with stock Doom 2 textures, but they're so like just difficult to get around. They're obtuse. Obtuseness bothers me.
I think it's very for me very dependent. Obtuseness can mean that it's the sole reason I love something, and then other times, like I love Demon Souls because it's obtuse. I love that it's even more obtuse than the other Souls games, but
Yeah.
occasionally it also does bother me. But it's
Well, sure,
very
and
dependent, map per map basis for sure for me.
I'm still thinking about how to describe in words the difference between a map that like bothers me the first time that keeps bothering me, and a map that bothers me the first time that I grow to love for the reason why it bothered me. Because BPRD's maps
That happens, yeah.
are so painful the first time a lot of the time, but they bring you back, and then you play them again, and you recognize that like he did what he did for a reason. Um, I think probably the thing that will drag. I mean, this is the last. I don't want to keep talking about the negative qualities of maps because that's to me kind of like not as worth dwelling on. Um, but maps without mapping for mapping's sake is a thing I see sometimes in Doom, where it's like just interconnected rooms, things kind of flow together, and there's no major set pieces, there's no major fights, and then it just kind of ends. And it's
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
those are really hard to write about, and just not like they struggle to justify their existence. And the worst part about those is that it's not an instant tanking of the grade. It's like I had to play the whole map to realize there was nothing worth playing here. And, that's not even most maps. I would say that's a small percentage of maps because even like inexperienced mappers make really interesting early maps because they have things that they wanted to do with Doom when they showed up. Um, it's usually like later work by people who are just kind of bored or uninspired. It's a shame, but it is a thing that happens.
I can definitely see that. But I do wonder. You talked. I think this was a little bit before we actually started recording that you were talking about how you were sort of interested in mapping and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and sort of getting into it. And I'm curious how your opinions on these things will change as you make maps for yourself, because I think you do get a little bit more sympathetic to certain elements in terms of you're like, oh, okay, well, this was like a speed map or something. This person was just making this as like an exercise or something, and then I perhaps you start to get a little more like pragmatic and sympathetic towards some of these elements when you do a bit more mapping. But
Oh yeah, after the first proper map I made, I automatically like from then on decided that I was going to go easier on people for like less than inspired texturing.
mhm.
Like if it's not, it doesn't have to be super eye catching for me to like praise it. It can just be like most of the time I won't even bother with it. Like I'll usually just say this is very pretty or this is very eye catching. But I won't bash bad texturing as much unless it's like, dude, what are you doing? Because like I'm not very good at texturing from what I've done. I have to try different things, and I'm still figuring out what works, and I don't. Yeah, I think I've automatically started sort of softened my critical eye in that way.
Yeah, I think it would be difficult for that not to happen. But let's talk about the positives then. What boosts a score for you?
Yeah, so transparently, a good MIDI will often really lift a map up like immediately. If it's like I have kind of diverse taste in Doom MIDIs. Like I like eccentric MIDIs. I like just kind of exciting, simple MIDIs. I like um I like MIDIs that don't necessarily like seem like they belong in Doom initially. I also just I kind of like I think the only type of MIDI that sometimes gets a little annoying is like balls out heavy metal. But I don't see a ton of that. Like usually that's like I'm thinking Hell Revealed 2 has a few of those, but I also really like some of those in Hell Revealed 2. So I don't know. I think I'm very like swayed by MIDIs, and if a map has a good MIDI, I'm more inclined to look at it nicer. Um, I think another thing is, well, I mean, combat plays like really plays into that, and I used to kind of like shrink away from combat, like when maps got harder, I went, oh, I gotta hide. Nowadays, I really like it when they kind of pour on the sauce. I get really like excited in big fights and like nasty traps. Um, that sort of thing really will elevate a map when it's consciously amping up things in the excitement factor. I also love big like extravagant set pieces. A good example would be like in Combat Shock 2, those gigantic arenas and like balls of monsters.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff. I mean, I'm not even like a huge slaughter aficionado, but that kind of thing, I just love. I love seeing that. I love the build up of a climactic fight is coming and it's like it's obvious, but I still like it. Like I even when I know a big fight is coming, when it lets it rip, that's always like a really positive moment for me. So maps that flatline and don't do a whole lot of that aren't going to get that boost, but maps that consciously pace out their like big exciting reveal, that scores brownie points with me for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Notice it's easier for me to talk about these things than like stuff I don't like because it's like I don't know. I'm not that hard to please. Like throw a lot of barrels or rockets and clumps of zombies, clumps of imps. That sort of thing automatically just makes the map a little bit more fun.
The skill saw vibes, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So you usually play pistol starts. You play on UV,
Yes.
and you play saveless where possible. Can you talk a bit about the importance of those criteria for experiencing a WAD and sort of when you tend to accept the fact that you may need to use saves?
Pistol starts I can speak to for sure. I don't really use saves. I took that disclaimer off after season 1.
Right.
The what do you call it? Saves are encouraged, or saveless is encouraged. You can experience it that way, but I think as long as you're not really abusing saves, which I mean, the only way you could really abuse saves is if I mean it depends. Like for me, there's a way I could think that I got through a fight. Like another person, that might be the only way they could get through the fight. So like that's how they should play because I think any way you play, you should experience as much Doom as you can. Therefore, you ought to save or not save accordingly. That's my philosophy. But to each their own.
Mm-hmm.
As far as pistol starts, now that's critical for Dean of Doom because I believe in grading each map according to like on its own terms in and of itself. It would be grossly unfair if I showed up to. This is a great example. TNT map 7. You start with the plasma gun. And when you're playing continuous, it's like you've got a whole backpack full of whatever, super shotgun, all the other weapons, and then you get the plasma gun. And it's like, oh baby, what's coming around the corner? Because music's pretty serious. And then that's another TNT-ism of you leave that original prison block, and there's all kinds of other stuff happening. The monsters are outside, and they collapse on you. From pistol start, all you get is that plasma gun, and it's like you really got to count your cells against the Baron of Hell in that room. And then there's a pain elemental, and you got very few shells, and it's like a totally different experience. That is, to me, what pistol starting is all about. You're playing continuous, you can really lean on ammo conservation in previous maps to kind of bull moose your way through the maps ahead. But when you're playing, when you're reviewing a map within if I was reviewing TNT Evolution, if I was doing a TNT review, I wouldn't care so much about the individual maps. It would be about the right around here is where it gets really hard, or whatever. Be the overall arc. But when I'm doing it a level by level review show, I want to give every map its fair shake and play on its turf, and I can't think of a better way to do that than by starting with 50 bullets and a pistol and only using what it gives you.
Yeah, well, I think most mappers would kind of agree with the sentiment, since 99% of people build their maps for pistol start.
Right.
So you also, another part of your sort of strict criteria for the way you end up grading things is that you play through WADs twice before reviewing them. Is one playthrough like a recorded session for footage, or do you generally record both in order to just have extra to work with?
That's a good question. Usually, I the first time I play it, I just do it for me and with myself, and that's it.
Yeah.
No recording, just to get the most like natural response I can get from it. I don't even take notes or anything. I just play it, as I would any other WAD. And that's pretty much the closest I get to playing Doom non-professionally now. Which, I mean, I shouldn't say it like that. I'm not trying to be self-pitying. I love playing Doom all the time in any context. But second playthrough, sometimes it depends. Some WADs I want to get right to the review, and it's like I'll record the second playthrough. That's the one I'll use. Other times I remember, oh yeah, I played such and such. That could make it into this season. I kind of want to play that again to like refresh my memory, and I'll play it and not record it, but just like get a sense of like I won't be incompetent when I replay this for the recording, and then I record it. So a lot of episodes get played 3 times, but again, only analytically the one time when I'm recording. I don't usually take notes of any kind on maps unless I'm in the recording process for them.
Mm-hmm. So as someone who generally makes sort of less save-friendly content, and someone who would be interested in seeing your perspective on harder stuff for reviews, do you think you may start tackling some WADs in the Sunlust range soon, or is that still quite a while away?
Well, I've beaten Sunlust. I would say the simple answer is yes, definitely.
Okay.
Was
this a saveless playthrough of Sunlust?
No.
Okay.
No. All of my playthroughs, especially record, like that's the other thing. The other reason I use saves, especially when I record, is I don't want to like lose a lot of time to dying. I just want to see the whole map, get all the footage, and move on. I doubt. I also don't have a ton of fun dying and losing time. It's not really a unique sentiment to like want to make your time count or anything in a video game. But I get like I'm very sensitive to like I just burned 15 minutes of my life. I don't want to do that unless it's like it might become a thing for me in the future, but probably not in Dean of Doom's context. Yeah, I've set my sights on Sunlust being the quote unquote last episode of Dean of Doom because it's a worthy last episode. I can't really think of a more worthy last episode, and it's got a sense of drama. I believe that a lot of the joy in life comes from anticipating things. I believe that the waiting and the fact that there's something on the horizon, the the sun is on the horizon, it gives a sense of moving towards something rather than like I don't know when the last episode will be. I might play Sunlust and then move on to something else. Like I'd rather have people know kind of what they're getting into with this show. But in the meantime, there's plenty of WADs that are Sunlust caliber difficult, but I do have my eye on. At this point, people have kind of picked it apart, but in the trailer for season 3, there's some footage of Combat Shock 2. It's not a spoiler to say that will be in season 3.
Great WAD.
No, I played it. I was very, very impressed. I have really kind of gotten into the Slaughter lately. I've played some stuff that I didn't think I'd ever play. And I imagine that will only continue on that trajectory. Fractured Worlds was actually one of those things I thought I would never be good enough to play. I cracked that open in the last year and just got my ass handed to me by the first map. And then opened the second map and I was like, boy, oh boy, I don't think I got the energy for this right now.
That's fair.
But then I went back to it this month and it was still tough. But the fight across the nasty platforming in the void with all the barons and the
Oh yeah.
steel cyber demons, I think I beat that on like I think I beat it on my first try this
Oh
time.
yeah.
So I'm much more ready. And that's the thing. Like that's the only reason why I improve at Doom is to play more Doom, is to play the cool looking stuff. Like that's why I'm kind of. It's funny nobody's really mentioned this, but the big looming scary thing behind Sunlust is Sunder. But I desperately want to experience Sunder someday because it's just it's a work of art. It's just unbelievable. And I don't know. I have not played a single minute of Sunder yet. That's how much I put it on a pedestal. I almost certainly could get through old Sunder. I don't know about new Sunder, but yes,
different animals.
Absolutely. From what I've seen of Destino's streams, it's just on another level.
Yeah, I would say 1 to 14 in a similar range to Sunless. I'd say Sunless is more difficult than old Sunder in parts.
Okay. Yeah. But I guess I have no desire to kind of just to tap out yet. Having beaten Swim with the Whales, I know that I have a point where I'm not having fun anymore, but I can raise that ceiling. I can still raise that ceiling. I also, I mean, this is not a spoiler, but I was also playing through a little bit of Slaughter Max.
Oh yeah.
I got to like map 7 or 8. I really enjoyed the first couple maps, but they just got crazier and crazier. Like Dan Lex's maps are just like, after you've killed everything, let's just release like 900 arch files and see what happens. Like just total anarchy, and like that was kind of fun, but at a certain point, I just got overwhelmed. However, I am making those forays, and I was enjoying myself, so I really can't rule out going into that terrain. I do think that some people would be like, it'd be a little alienated on some level. I'm not going to not review those VODs because people won't be able to play them. I want to be able to see as much of Doom as I can and as many different types of Doom as I can. So I'm also very wrong to exclude Slaughter from the Dean of Doom experience. But I guess what I'm saying is the very long answer to your question is heck yeah, I want to keep playing tougher stuff.
That's good. I guess I would suggest that for me personally, I've always enjoyed watching other people play things that I would never play myself. Like if I watch a speedrun for like GDQ or whatever, a lot of the time the ones that I enjoy the most is like, I'm vaguely interested in this game, I would never play it myself, but it's usually really fun to see other people play. So perhaps you'll get the same thing from people who aren't necessarily willing to play Slaughter themselves.
Well, it's funny because that's how I felt when I watched Casino play Hell Revealed 2 and Sunlust. And now I played all of those. I never pictured myself playing God Machine, and I did.
There you go.
And it was, it was what it was. And nowadays I watch A1s play stuff, and I'm like, have fun with memories and speed maps, and have fun with Mr. Zul and Dimensions. Those look cool. Yeah, it's really cool to watch you kick ass in them, but I don't think I could do that. But we'll see. Never say never.
It's a very gradual thing. I will say that saveless playthroughs do help you get better at the game. Like I played through Sunless saveless, and that was sort of a huge jump in skill for me after I finished that WOD. Like I just became so much better at the game because the stakes are a lot higher, obviously.
Conquer your nerves and you gain a lot of confidence, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. But I suppose like even when you're watching someone play through Dimensions, and when you're watching speedrunners do, like you got to appreciate that a lot of these runs are taking hundreds of attempts, thousands even. I think
Definitely.
I think Vile's I feel like Vile's Fractured Worlds 3 run was something like 1,000 attempts or something. It was a lot.
Oh my god, that's crazy.
So
crazy.
It's difficult to put yourself against these people realistically.
Oh, I don't see it as a competition at all, and I definitely my respect for A1s is less due to his just superhuman. I mean, he is superhuman in terms of his performance, but it is his endurance. I think that's the number one characteristic of a good speedrunner and a good Doom player, especially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you talked about Swim with the Whales, which I was like, oh, I really hope one day uh, he does a Dina Doom on Swim with the Whales, and then I watched one of the sawed off wads that you did, and boom, there it was. It's one of my
Yep.
favorite wads of all time.
Mhm.
And so like the sawed off wads, for people that don't know, is sort of like shorter wads that don't necessarily have enough content for like a full video of their own. Can we expect some more like spin-off content like this, where you do like perhaps you present things in a different format?
Um, Doom related, I don't think so. If only, well, in terms of like reviews, I think I've got the both types covered. Like there's megawads, like major projects that can be in one episode, and then the kind of errata for sawed off wads. However, I've desperately wanted to make like one-off topic-based videos. I've been saying this for well over a year. Like I want to make X video. I want to make Y video. I've got like two or three ideas that are just going to be
Yeah.
like I am Save Scum, like the Mucus Flow, video essay type stuff. So yes, you can expect stuff in different formats eventually, but not in a review context. But also, I've been getting a lot of. I mentioned heretic. I just said the word heretic twice in my resurgence video. And then I think again in Kama Sutra, and I got a lot of heretic fans saying, please, Dean of Heretic,
All
we
10 of them.
really. You'd be surprised. It was like they actually did, like however many there are, they rallied together and they want to see that. So I mean, since it is technically in the Doom engine, or a modified version of the Doom engine, but it's more or less wouldn't be that much of a jump or a change. I've wanted to review other games on the channel eventually. I
Mhm.
just what I absolutely need before I can do that is a different format, is a different way of presenting. Sawed off wads took me at least a year to figure out how that would work, and not like continuous thinking, but like the idea occurred to me like I want to do wads that can't build their own episode up, and I don't want to make 5-minute videos. So the idea is to do different small wads. Like I needed a name, needed a rally around the name, and I finally came up with sawed off wads. And then I thought, how am I going to present this? I can do the terminal room where Doom Guy goes down and kind of goes from terminal to terminal. That was like a pretty late stage. Like that was the thing that made sure that was going to be a show. It was going to be a segment. So I've kicked around ideas for covering other games in a similar format. Um, I guess I won't go into details just because I think that's not my brand to kind of splurge details on that kind of stuff. But
Mhm.
point being, like the for those folks who have asked me to cover other games or asked me if I'm going to cover other games, the answer is I definitely like to. I have a couple like on my list. And when I say on my list, that could mean I'm going to do it, in a month or in 2 years. But yeah, that's a really good question in terms of like because Dean of Doom, it's very comfy for me. It's a very reliable format, but it also is. It's not smothering me yet, but to do the same thing over and over again can get you really complacent and uncreative. And I think Sawed Off Wads was it gave me a nice rush of this feels different. This is a new form, and
Mhm.
I want to keep doing things in different forms.
Yeah. For sure, you got to keep it interesting for yourself as well as the viewers.
Mhm.
Uh, so the experience for me of watching one of your Demon of Doom videos where you offer this sort of abridged version of a mega horde, it's something that I liken to binge watching a TV series, and it makes me wonder sort of what your general goals for a Dean of Doom video are in terms of presentation and like what feelings you're attempting to elicit when you make a video.
Right, and that's another excellent question. Um, it opens up a bit of a can of worms because I can talk a little bit about how my approach to like what am I doing with this show evolved. In the first 4 episodes, I was just going through each level and just writing about it. I was just trying to stack up paragraphs about levels and then exporting, basically. But when I finished the Alien Vendetta episode, I was like, wow. I feel like just watching this video, I kind of went on a journey through it. Less so with Ev Eternity because it was kind of like I tried to do the same thing, but it wasn't quite right. Alien Vendetta, it felt like I was sort of recapping the WAD's story, and in doing so, creating a thing you could kind of watch the WAD in brief. It was still rough around the edges. It still wasn't perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then around Vanguard, when I made Vanguard, that was the first episode where I said the point of this show is to spread the joy of Doom. And that became my mission statement. Because I realized when I, like, in the opening paragraph of the Alien Vendetta episode, I said something along the lines of, this megawatt is the reason why the show exists, because it is. I wanted to know more about Alien Vendetta. I wanted to kind of join that Doom world, and I wanted to create a thing that could kind of show you, like, this is what it is. This is what people are making, and this is, your gateway. So by the time I got to Ancient Aliens, I wanted to do the same thing with Ancient Aliens as I did with Alien Vendetta, give you that feeling of going through the whole WAD and kind of experiencing with the music, and match my words to the kind of feeling you get when you play the map. But also, I wanted to make it a joyful experience. I wanted to show people like how fun this could be, to kind of share in this work that Skillsaw did pro bono, and that his friends joined in and added their masterpieces too. And basically, I had this simultaneously egotistical experience and selfless experience of, I wanted to capture Megawad in video form. Like, I wanted to kind of condense it into a half-hour crystallized version that you could inject intravenously,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's how I operated kind of from then on, because I was very satisfied with how Ancient Aliens came out. I thought that I consider that today like the first episode that kind of holds up in terms of its presentation. The first 7 are okay; they have moments, but they're mostly inconsistent. And I think I specifically succeeded with Ancient Aliens, going down, Valiant, and Revolution in the first season, and Mucus Flow, but like Community Chest 2, not really. And then I think my fixation on trying to like capture these megawads in a bottle, peaked with Scythe 2. That was like 100% my effort at like infusing drama into the WAD from my end. It kind of got to the point of self-indulgence. Like, I was trying to write as if I had made the WAD myself, or like, this is just a story I'm writing and I'm setting it to footage that Eric Alm created. But I don't know, it got very heady and over dramatic in places. I still really like the Scythe 2 episode, but I think my goal with Dino of Doom now is to let the WAD speak for itself as much as it can. I want to match it, not try to make my words the focal point so much as I want to try to let it speak through me rather than speak for it. I'm getting into kind of I'm rambling into self-indulgent terrain here, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that I used to kind of the focal point used to be like my language and like my ability to write, and now I kind of want to make the maps the focal point. I'm writing on behalf of these folks who've made these maps, and like, if a map is really transcendent and amazing or personally powerful to me, I'm going to say so, like I did with Civilization. Like, that just there was no drop of ego in that script. I just love that WAD from the bottom of my heart, and I don't care who knows. So basically, it's been I'm a pretty self-reflective person to begin with, but this has been a pretty self-reflective journey, Dean of Doom, because started off like being thrilled with the attention, but have learned that the attention is not what I'm doing this for. I'm doing this so that people can have weekly or bi-weekly entertainment and get some relief from the stresses of life. And I wanna make the mappers feel like celebrities for a day, feel like superstars, and give back for all the hours of entertainment and joy that that have been given to
Mm-hmm.
so
Well, I think you talked about sort of making the map shine more than yourself, and there are
Yeah.
sort of subtle editing things you seem to do that, and maybe that's more prevalent in later videos, I'm not sure, but even just sort of pulling back the audio from like your voice and letting a MIDI play while the map plays out, and things like that, which you do occasionally. I'm assuming
I really like featuring midis. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm assuming that kind of stuff is something you're trying to employ more and more now.
I guess like I try to have fun with words, but I don't want like I think the most dramatic line you'll ever hear me say is "You are the scythe." I don't think I want to get any more poetical than that. That was just it was the peak of something. I don't know. Maybe the peak of MtPain. I'm not sure.
There you go. You just got more poetic, I'm afraid.
I did. Damn it.
Uh, I'm curious, like throughout this experience, were there any WODs that you felt were marred by the process of creating a video on it? Like, did you have a very enjoyable first playthrough of a WOD, and then the second time felt really sort of exhausting?
This is just a terrific and perceptive question, I have to say. My compliments, because I don't think I've ever been asked that. I mean, in anybody I've talked to about the show, period. But it's so true. At like the making of the video, when once I've Dean of Doomed something,
Yeah.
it changes how I look at that WOD for good or for ill, and it's gone both ways. And I want to try to. I gotta look back. There are a couple that are kind of ruined for me, and it's like really sad because I still the best example I could think of was Going Down. Playing that for Dean of Doom, I have not played it since, and I love Going Down. I think it's not only a fun WOD, but it's basically artistic masterpiece. It's just like incredible texture use and creative and full of life. But it is a damn stressful WOD to play. Damn stressful time of my life, and not only having to play those maps but put down words on them. I think it says here it took me 10 days between Thy Flesh Consumed and Halloween when I released it. It felt like shorter than that. I was probably working like I didn't have a job at the time, so I was working all day on that, and it burned me out. And the act of finishing the video is like I can't wait to be done with Going Down, which is a real shame. I just kind of played it into the ground, and that sometimes happens. I would say it was more common with the earlier episodes than with the later episodes. But I do feel like a sense of I'm done. I've done it. I can put it behind me now. When I've finished a WOD in Dean of Doom, lots of WODs that I also want to be moving forward to like play new stuff. But there are some that I don't think I'm going to go back to, and I think Going Down might regrettably be one of them. On the other hand, to go back to Scythe 2, the first time I played that was absolutely miserable. I just hated Scythe 2. I didn't even finish it. I got to map 26 where I stopped, and then I got to map 27 and I stopped again, and then I beat map 28. That was no problem, and then map 29 was just a slog, and then I got to map 30 and it was like, oh, I just want this to be over. I didn't really like appreciate it at all. By the time I went back through it and was re-experiencing the easier maps and just like writing about it, I was like, wow, this is great. You know what? This is really great. And then, like, I think my excitement for the WOD was building while I was making the episode, culminating in, like, I think this map 30 might be the best map 30 out there, or at least it was for its time. It was definitely the best map 30 of its time. And like my opinion of the WOD went from it was like a worst to first type story. So in that way, I wouldn't trade the Dean of Doom experience. I don't think I've definitely made a lot more WODs like memorable and fun and amazing myself than I have ruined. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a fine line when you're analyzing things. It's sort of like watching a film and sitting there and kind of picking it apart for metaphor and all this stuff and subtext and analyzing it over and over, and you can't really watch the scenes the same way because you're looking at the camera angles and stuff, and
yeah,
you can end up sort of putting your brain in the wrong place to enjoy something, I think, when you put your analytical cap on.
Yes, I agree with that sentiment. I think probably the only two things I've ever enjoyed more by looking really, really closely at them are Shakespeare and Doom.
Well, there you go. Shakespeare and Doom. What a pairing.
Yeah, indeed.
Uh,
Somebody needs to make Shakespeare Doom. I would get an instant review from me.
I wonder what. I'm not sure what you would go with.
They turn all the demons into. I guess
Watch
Shakespeare's
a
not a very
Doom
visual
about
medium.
nothing, huh?
Oh my God, that's a 10 out of 10 A plus pun.
Pretty
That
good.
is just brilliant.
That one,
Brilliant.
anyone can use that. That's fine. I
Such
won't
a
copyright
Doom
it.
about nothing. Holy crap. Imagine Nirvana coming up with an amazing pun on his podcast while interviewing MtPain.
Yeah. Out punned.
Perfect.
This is
MtPun27.
home ground. Got the
Yep.
home pun advantage.
Indeed. Indeed.
Uh, so you talked about wanting to make like other content, perhaps outside of Doom. And do you think you would keep that as part of the MtPain channel, or would you want to make a separate channel for other games? It does not really matter to you that it would be attached to the MtPain name.
I think any gaming material would go on MtPain. It'd be pretty clear that I was a Doom first channel, and I still have no plans, like immediate plans, to make videos about other games. So as of now, I'm not really worrying about diluting the brand. But anything I make, in terms of film or music or writing, is going to go on the MtPain project, which is the side channel that I announced during during graduation for season 2.
Mm-hmm. And what about the new administration center channel?
Oh yeah, Administration Center 21 will be dedicated to only maps that are just pure boredom and pain to navigate. I'm actually going to do a Let's Play channel for that,
Okay.
and it'll just be sounds of my suffering and groaning and complaining.
I was thinking it was going to be, maybe reviews of filing cabinets or office equipment, things like that.
Paint, like the quality of paint as it dries.
Yeah, something like that. A question that I'm sure other people will be interested to know. Will there be more from... And I'm looking at this now in my text file, and I've misspelled delinquent. I must have been very tired when I read these. Will there be more from Delinquent of Doom?
There will indeed. Actually, somebody had a great post on Doom World when he burst into Lost Souls at the end of Lunar Eclipse. Somebody asked, does that mean the Delinquent is canonically dead now? And I knew that somebody would mention that because that's how pain elementals die. But no, he's still around. I think Doom monsters, when they die, they get reincorporated in hell, so he'll be back. He's not going to get let off that easily.
He'll never be the same. I think I saw that comment too, and I thought it was funny that I don't know if this is maybe an obscure reference, but I don't know if you've ever seen On Cinema at the Cinema. It's a Tim Heidecker.
Yeah, I have. I've seen clips of it. I don't watch it like regularly, but I've seen seen enough of it.
I was thinking, when I read that sort of the lore implications of Delinquent of Doom being dead, I was thinking that maybe it was time for the MtPain channel to start having a bunch of weird lore that you built into your videos that eventually took over the actual review process, much like that shit.
I'd love to do that. I think the longer it stays around, the more likely that sort of meta narrative is likely to take root and grow. I mean, the Delinquent is kind of the extent of the extra characters, but it's kind of hush hush. But I do sort of intend to bring another character on eventually.
Ooh. I'm hoping it just gets completely unhinged. Is the hope?
It's like full of different Doom monsters and their different personalities. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'll have a whole menagerie by the time I'm done.
I'm looking forward to it. And speaking of Doom monsters, probably my cleanest transition into this question so far.
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite Doom monster and why?
Great question, and very difficult to answer. It's so funny because most people would probably naturally default to Archvile because the Archvile is so versatile and such a. I mean, I think that the Archvile is the best Doom monster. Whether or not it's my favorite is hard to say, and it also just I want to resist being basic. Maybe it's my hipster TNT-ness rearing its head again, but I do like pain elementals. I think I mean, I have a lot of affection for the Delinquent now, but just in Doom, it's just such a I think who was it? Was it Gazebo who said the pain elemental also? And it's like a thing that when you see it, you just kind of go, ah, even if it's just one.
Yeah.
Says something along those lines. Yeah. A pain elemental completely changes whatever encounter he's in, and he's also just like kind of goofy. I don't know. There's something goofy about the pain elemental, the way he looks, the way he sounds. You can just get up in his face and nothing bad will happen to you. Just a fun and very, very creative in its simplicity type monster. Just a monster that's harmless, except that it creates more monsters. So basically, if you're talking about monsters that I enjoy fighting and that are technically interesting, but also like from a design perspective, fun, I have to go with the pain elemental. But I also I love the cacodemon. I think pinkies are really fun. I just like laugh at pinkies now when I look at them because they just crack me up. Not because they're pathetic, but because they're just like, I don't know, they're just trundling towards you. It's a
funny design. The side profile, like the shape of their head and their proportions, is kind of amusing. Yeah.
And they're never not hungry for Doom Guy, you know?
It's true. I think the pain elemental is interesting because it's one of the few enemies. Pinkies as well to an extent, but they make it so that you can't easily use one of the weapons in your roster, which is the rocket launcher, which is a rarity among Doom monsters.
That's right. Pretty much tee off on everything else. But yeah, Archvile and Pain Elemental are neck and neck, would be my answer.
Yeah, I think Archvile's been the most common. I think Revenant a close second. It's, another big pick, which speaks to the types of mappers that I interview as well, I think. But,
absolutely.
But yeah, Pain Elemental, good choice.
Yeah, thank
you. Well, that is always my final question, so that brings us to the end. Thanks a lot for being on. It was sort of a first point of contact for us, really, this interview, but it was a pleasure. And have Danny Babinga to thank, actually, for introducing me to your content. He wanted me to get you on very early on when I spoke to him. And I sort of went and watched a bunch of your videos and really enjoyed them. And I was like, I think I can get some questions out of this guy. So,
you did a great job. These were really, really good questions, and it was fun to answer them, and great to talk to you, man.
That's great. I'm glad you had a good time, because I definitely did. So, yeah, go check out MtPain27 on YouTube. Makes great content. And yeah, thanks again for being on, and I'll see everyone next time.